Right, so here's a question for you. If you already watch someone else's content for free on YouTube, what exactly is the cinema ticket buying you? Because Vaazha 2 doesn't seem entirely to know the answer. This movie is a spiritual sequel to the 2024's Vaazha, a biopic of a billion boys, which I thought it was fine. A decent enough watch. You can watch my review on it here. That movie wasn't something spectacular, but it had a certain charm, at least. So when a sequel was announced, with a new director, same writer, same energy, I figured I would give it a fair shot. I don't think I should have been that generous. The premise of the movie is straightforward enough. There are 4 close friends, tight-knit since school, known around their hometown, constantly in trouble with their teachers and their parents and the society in general. The movie is trying to capture the fun part of schooling. I suppose that's the fun part. The chaotic, the irresponsible, the intensely bonded period of adolescence. And to the film's credit, I think the first third of the movie actually works reasonably well. It weaves its storylines together with a decent enough sense of rhythm. You get the group dynamic, you get the setting, and you get a feel for the world. And then it just falls off a cliff. Because what follows is not really a story, it's just a series of sketches. Disconnected clips loosely stick together with no real cause or effect. Actually, a significant amount of time on the movie is just wasted on the same idea being presented over and over and over again. The boys get into trouble, into inexplicable fights, they get caught, adults treat them like they're absolute rubbish, rinse and repeat and repeat and repeat. In this movie, in Vaazha 2, nothing accumulates. None of the 4 leads has what I would call like an inner life, a story arc of their own. They don't have fleshed out personalities beyond what the actors bring from their existing public personas. So the repetition doesn't actually build towards anything. It's just repetition for the sake of it. And then, in the final stretch, the film completely transforms. All of a sudden, it's trying to cram in all the growth, all the inner conflict, life lessons, and emotional realization it just missed for over 2 hours. Because yes, this film lasts for 3 hours. And in the end, it just tries to become an entirely different, a much serious movie. But in my opinion, it is far too late. Come on, you can spend almost 3 hours doing sketch comedy and then suddenly ask me to weep. The shift is so abrupt, so unearned, that the emotional climax just lands with a thud. I have to say that the filmmaking doesn't really help. The score, the music, is just constant and manipulative. It's just wall-to-wall music that tells you exactly what you should be feeling at every single moment. There is no breathing room, there is no quiet. It just doesn't trust the audience. I would say this is just emotional manipulation rather than just emotional storytelling. And yes, obviously, I wouldn't be able to finish this review without talking about that weird scene. There is a scene that is meant to be comedic, I suppose, but it definitely veers into territory that is genuinely uncomfortable and even disturbing. Something that I think the film wanted to be more like a social critique of certain customs, but in the way it's presented, it completely defeats its own purpose. It goes on forever, it is not funny, and it left me feeling more disgusted than anything. I won't go into details, but trust me, if you've seen the movie or when you see the movie, you'll know the scene I'm talking about, and you'll wish you hadn't seen it at all. Now, let me talk about the writing. I'll give you a couple of specific examples to illustrate the quality of writing we're dealing with here. These are spoilers, by the way, so if you haven't seen the movie, I advise you to skip to this timestamp. I'm showing it on the screen. I'll wait for a few seconds for you to take action. Well, here we go. The film ends with the characters having these big emotional moments. Lovely, right? Except one of the characters, one of these friends, is seriously ill. He's sitting on a bench and the guy who's supposed to help him by bringing him some medicines is just sitting 6 miles away having this moment of sudden personal growth. The film is so caught up in trying to cram that emotional high and hit those feelings that it literally abandons the sick character in a bench. I honestly thought the guy had died by the way it was presented. And honestly, I think that might have been more realistic. At least it would have shown some consequences. But no, somehow the guy gets better. We just don't know how, because the film doesn't care. And that's the point. The movie's message and the plot become so separate from one another that the emotional climax and the plot climax have absolutely nothing to do with each other. The second one is that earlier in the film, there is this white character, a proper unapologetic racist. He shouts a slur, and not a mild one, straight at one of the characters. It is ugly. It is meant to be ugly, I suppose. But fast forward to the finale. The character is in tears over his father's death. And who's there to comfort him? Arms wide open and with a very warm hug? Yes, a racist friend. Hugging it out casually. And the camera, then let me tell you, I'm not making this up, cuts to a slow, tender close-up of what appears to be the guy's daughter, watching the embrace with tears in her eyes, as though we just witnessed something beautiful. Seriously, did anyone read this script back to themselves out loud before they actually filmed it? I'm just losing my mind here. And this is the thread that runs throughout the entire film. Because Vaazha cannot commit to a single position on anything. It wants to celebrate reckless teenage antics and at the same time waves the finger at them. It wants to lecture on how schools and parents fail young people, but then it just presents violence, police violence to be specific, as a perfectly reasonable solution. The moralizing is constant, is blunt, it's not subtle at all. It's delivered straight down the barrel of the lens, and the film spends every other scene proving it doesn't actually believe any of it, any of the message it's trying to convey. Right, I don't want to be entirely negative, so let me give some credit where credit is due. One thing that Vaazha does well, and is that it shares that with its predecessor, is that it doesn't try to portray an idealized version of life. The world it depicts is messy, chaotic, and sometimes it's just cruel. Teachers aren't saints, parents make mistakes, friendships are complicated, going to the UK won't solve your issues, living in the Gulf is just awful. There is some honesty in this setting, and even if the story lets it down, I think it's something to appreciate. The second point that Vaazha gets right is the theme of brotherhood, both blood-related and friendship-based. It's genuinely remarked throughout the movie, and when the film manages to tap into that without drowning in tears and swelling strings, there are flickers of something real, so that's it. So who is this for? I think the film's popularity, and it has found an audience. I was researching, there's many good comments about it. I think it just comes down to relatability. If you grew up in Kerala, if you had that specific brand of chaotic school friendships, you'll see yourself in these four characters. And then I can understand why this might hit you differently. Some people clearly see their own adolescence reflected on the screen, and that's okay. But for me, and for others I've spoken to, it just feels exaggerated and forced. The emotions don't land because they haven't been earned. The comedy isn't sharp enough to sustain itself. And the serious final act, rather than elevating everything that came before it, only highlights how hollow the preceding 160 minutes were. So here's what I learned. If I say the first Vaazha movie was okay, and I did, then I can in good faith recommend you this one. The writing is a mess, the structure is non-existent past the first act, there is this tonal whiplash that maybe just gives you a headache, and the emotional payoff is built on foundations that are just made out of sand. They don't stand on their own. So I would say just keep this one. Don't watch it. Well, unless you genuinely love the first film and you're desperate for more of the same energy, well, then watch it, but otherwise, yeah, just skip it. For everyone else, I think your 3 hours are better spent elsewhere, watching some other movie. And that's it for this one. Let me know in the comments if you've seen it and whether you agree with me or I'm being too harsh. And if you did enjoy it, genuinely, tell me what I'm missing. I'm all ears. I'll see you in the next one.